Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. Joining me to look ahead to Ireland's next pool match against Tonga is someone earning his 42nd cap. Welcome back to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Good to be back. Thanks a million.
Indeed, great to have you. Okay, well, just before we look at this week's match, Conor, why don't you first share us your overall thoughts on the tournament so far? We have a lot of matches last weekend.
Yeah, I think we should look at the lowlights first. Those bloody anthems. My God, I have small children in my house. People shouldn't worry, they're mine. And they would absolutely have done a better job on any of those. But why give it to the kids to sing? Why not have a band or at least a decent played version? Why they went for that option, I don't know. And maybe it's the idea of, well, if we get a bunch of random school kids to sing it, they'll be invested and they'll get their parents to be invested and everybody will watch the game. They won't. They'll watch the first 5 minutes to hear their child singing, and then maybe they'll stay, and hopefully they'll stay, but there's no guarantees. That is, for me, the absolute low light. Now, I haven't seen the start of, as we're recording, the start of the French and Uruguay game. So I don't know if the anthems have got any better, but they talked about how they were going to change something. I don't know what you can change to improve that, other than to axe it and replace it completely. So that's my absolute low light. I also have to say that another low light is there seems to be a bit of inconsistency with refereeing decisions. I'm not going to talk about any one individual. I'm not going to talk about any one match. But I think when we look at all two very, very similar incidents, and one where a player is available to play next game, and one where a player is not available to play for 2 games, three if he doesn't go to tackle school, that's questionable. And I think, and I mentioned it in the group chat during the week, I think everybody needs to watch the Wales versus South Africa match from a couple of years ago, where our good Georgian friend was refereeing, and I'm not going to pretend to try and pronounce his name, where he said, this is your final warning. Okay, there's a yellow card. There's another offence, so there's another yellow card. This idea of, now this is your warning of your warning for a last warning.
Yeah, you go back to zero or something.
Nonsense. Yeah.
Basically, the card should be automatically a warning for the next card.
Yeah, 100%.
Essentially, yeah.
Yep. No, you're clearly not learning, so let you lose another one, and you're still not learning. You can lose another one. I want to see more of that, because it doesn't matter what game you're watching. You don't want to see, fellas, this game has been taken from us for the wrong reasons. And I think that's a poor way for anyone to look at that game afterwards. As for highlights, there's been some great rugby. There's been some good matches. There's been some real showpieces that give an opportunity for spectators, old and new, to be involved, to grow the game. It really is. It's a spectacle for the game, and it gives a great opportunity to grow the game worldwide. And I think that will be even more so in 4 years' time, when the number of competitors is increased from the current 20. And yeah, it'd be great to see the game building off these big games and these big opportunities. And you look at a match that's running this evening as we're filming, France versus Uruguay, and everybody's saying, Uruguay, sure, who are they? You're going nowhere, is probably what people are thinking. And they're really putting it up to the French, and it's an absolute testament to the development of rugby globally. And I think that, for me, is my highlight of the tournament so far, that these games are, they're not, okay, whatever about Ireland, Romania last week, but that when opportunities are there, they're not just making up the numbers. They're here to play. They're here to be part of the competition.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, as we're recording, it's 62 minutes gone, well into the second half, and it's still only 2012 to France at the moment. So yeah, they're the some of these nations are really showing what they can do. Okay, so now it's time to look at our feature match of the week, which is, of course, Ireland v Tonga. It's in Pool B of the 2023 Rugby World Cup, and it kicks off on Saturday, September 16th at 8 p.m. Irish time at the Stade de la Beaujoire in Nantes, with TV coverage on RTE2. The Irish team was named on Thursday, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's there on the screen. Otherwise, you'll see it in the program notes. Conor selected three key areas to harp on, starting with the overall strength of the selection.
Yeah, no holds barred here. I look at that team, look at the quality that's there, and there'll be a few fellas sitting in the background, a bit aggrieved, saying, "Oh, I really thought I'd at the very least get one of these games." And no, it's put out the very, very best we can put out. I think you look at 1 to 15, and I don't think there's any arguing that that's very close, if not exactly the same as the 1 to 15 with injuries the way they currently stand that we would put out against South Africa if we were playing them this weekend. It is a strong, solid team going out to build cohesion, to build those all those important buzzwords, those things where it's getting used to each other, it's playing together, it's time working in that high intensity frame of mind. And it doesn't matter how high the intensity gets in training, it's totally different when it's an actual match. So it'll be much higher intensity for this than it would be normally for a training session. And I think all those players working together in that means that by the time we get to the South Africa game next week, they'll have had more time together. They'll be more used to each other again. They'll know this is what he does. This is what I will do. This is my role. He's missing from there. How can I fill his role or help fill that gap or whatever it is? And you've got 15 smart rugby brains there that are going to do that. I genuinely, I feel a bit sorry for Tonga, to be honest, because if you're sitting there this afternoon and in your head you're thinking, okay, they're going to underestimate us and they're going to name a few of these guys and a couple of those guys and okay, a few of those big names, and then you look at that team sheet and that's going to hurt. You're going to look at that and you're just going to be wondering, oh man, where are we going to find the gaps and the holes and the opportunities against a team like that?
Absolutely. I mean, we were saying, going back a while, looking ahead at the schedule, that it looked like, because we had Romania and Tonga first, would be a chance to, save, maybe save a few players and, look at some of the other options in the fringes of the squad. But that's not the way they're. I mean, Andy Farrell's, he's always had his plan and he's known what he's wanted to do. And like I say, this is pretty much as almost as full strength a team as you can get. I mean, the argument you can make, maybe Gibson Park, maybe sitting out, but then you see Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton playing together, and the team's grand, and it's definitely a strong team all around. Okay, so your second point is on the subject of opportunities.
Yeah, and look, I think as much as this is very, very close to the team we'll put out against South Africa, I think, you've mentioned Gibson Park there. He's maybe one who might come in ahead of Conor Murray, but Conor Murray has a good game tomorrow. There's his opportunity to be the starter against South Africa. Dave Kilcoyne coming off the bench, it's his opportunity to prove that he is definitely ahead of Lockman. It's an opportunity for Ian Henderson to stake his place for the South Africa game after Joe McCarthy had an absolutely great game. And it's interesting, it's curious to know, are we resting him, knowing that his physicality and his bulk will be very, very useful against a team like South Africa? And it's curious when you look at other teams being selected. The South African team, who's not selected this week, and does that mean they're being rested and being given a chance to take it easy before they play against us? So I think, yeah, Robbie Henshaw, he's another one. He's one with the opportunity this week to say, actually, I'm good to go. Let's get out there. Let's do it. And I want to be 12, not 23 next week. Yeah, so a real opportunity for particularly bench players and one or two people. I think when it comes to the number 2 jersey, one would expect if Dan Sheehan is fit that he will definitely be in 2 or 16. So this is a chance for Rob Herring and Kelleher to show, well, actually, I should be in the other jersey. So a real good opportunity for guys to stake their claim for the bigger games. Not to try and disrespect Tonga, and I think it's, to refer to, but Ireland South Africa is going to be a box office game, whereas unfortunately Ireland Tonga, there are people who will see this as, sure, it's just Tonga, which I think is unfair. I think it's unrealistic as well. I think we shouldn't be looking at it as just Tonga, and that's what the coaching team are doing. It's not just Tonga. It is a World Cup game, and we are going out to win it.
Yep, definitely looks like it. And for your third point, you want to talk about provincial bias.
Yeah, look, it was inevitable when team selections were made. There was going to be, why aren't there more of those players from my provincial team? Or why is he getting that jersey and not the guy I think is better and more qualified for the jersey? And unfortunately, some of it is coming down to, oh, isn't it terrible? It's that province and not my province. Is that? And I think we really need to take a leaf out of what's happening in camp, to ignore provincial crap. I mean, do we honestly think that tomorrow Conor Murray, and I'm using him as an example, I think at any stage Conor Murray will turn around and say, oh, I have to pass it to Johnny Sexton now instead of Jack Crowley? Do we think that Tyke Byrne is going to be looking, going, oh, I've got to stick my head between their legs and not those people's legs when it comes to this scrum?
Or like,
And
even with this selection for this match, I mean, was it a case of Jack Crowley was dropped for Ross Byrne, or is it possible they're just trying both and as 22 as backup?
Yeah, it's an utter nonsense thing to suggest anyone has been dropped for this game. I think it was always on the cards that when Johnny Sexton is fit, Johnny Sexton is our first choice 10. That conversation has been had again and again and again. Look back on your lovely, you put it all together really nicely in a beautiful YouTube video with everything what we'd all said over the weeks for the positions 1 to 15. And the fact is, Johnny Sexton was always going to be first choice. And these 2 games were about giving both players the opportunity to prove in the big game mentality why they could be number 2 to him. And I think more importantly, why they could be number 1 in 4 years' time, or certainly number 1 going into a Six Nations campaign in a few months. But it was always going to be one player for one game, one player for the other one. I have no issue with the fact that Jack Crowley was chosen at number 22 last week. And I don't think anyone should have any issue that Ross Byrne is chosen at number 22 this week. It's just, it's a rotation system. Because if something happens tomorrow to any number 10, and God forbid, touch wood, and any other things you want to say here, but if something were to happen, we need to know that both players are in the right headspace. We need to know that there's people suggesting that Ross has had a bit of a kick and glitch lately. We need to know that that's gone. We need to have seen that gone before it becomes one of those bigger games. So I think the provincial bias nonsense has to be shelved. I don't care what province you're from. I don't care what province those 23 players are from. And I know there's going to be people going, oh yeah, but that's because so many of them are from your province or whatever. Nonsense. I think if, looking at the players available, if Stuart McCluskey, for example, had started this game instead of Bundyaki, or was on the bench instead of Robbie Henshaw. That's the choices. I'm not in camp. I don't know. I'm not seeing everything that an entire coaching ticket with analysis and live information being fed from those little GPS packs on their back. The information they can get, the way they can train now is so incredible. The data is available by the end of the session to be able to say, he did this, he did that, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And we have to trust that the people who are making these decisions are making the right decisions.
Yeah, and yeah,
there's no provincial bias. There's no. Andy Farrell doesn't have a province. Mike Catt doesn't have a province. And you like to think that even though they've come from a provincial setup, that the likes of, for example, Paul O'Connell is looking and saying, he's not picking players just because of where they're from or anything else. He's picking the best 23 for the day, shelve the provincial bullshit, and support the team. As a nation, as a country, as a collective union, whatever way you want to look at this, that's who we have to support, not just the ones we happen to like from our own provinces.
Absolutely. I mean, this goes right back to 2 years ago, before Ireland went on this run, when Andy Farrell had his first real series, an autumn series after COVID, and he picked, he did pick a very Leinster heavy squad and Leinster heavy starting teams. And I suppose, once he's done that, there was, if they didn't do well, we know what would have happened. But there was another way it could go. They could do well, and they could show that it's not about the province, it's the players he wants to play the way he wants. And I keep saying, going into this World Cup, you can never guarantee what's going to happen to Ireland, but they literally could not have done any more in the build up to this World Cup to let us have faith in them. So I think you're absolutely right. We need to put the jerseys aside. Listen, we're gonna have just a quick look at the Tongan side now. There's a few names we do know from there. They've gone a while without any rugby. What do you make of their lineup?
As you say, look, there's a few names in there that are very recognizable, Piatow and Havili, Fafita, Fekatoa, all these guys who we know are really, really good rugby players. And I think Tonga, as all the Pacific nations have done, I think they've really benefited from this new rule change where or law change, I should say, that you can change your allegiance. And we've seen it for a few teams taking advantage of that and making good use of it. And I think that Tonga are really, they've got a lot of strong names, but they haven't played. As I say, they haven't been together. They haven't had the opportunity to build that cohesion and those relationships that make he's going to do this or he is likely to do that. Now, look, a lot of those names, they could do anything from anywhere. It's like watching Fiji at the weekend against Wales, fellas who they just want to run the ball, they want to play, they want to put in their tackles, they want to make their hits. And a lot of those guys are pretty large men. So we need to be ready for that physicality. We need to be ready for what they're going to bring. But I think as good as they are, they don't have the cohesion that we're going to have. And that's gonna show.
Absolutely. I mean, you'd be excited to see a center pairing like Aki and Fekatoa going up against ours. But I mean, that works both ways. It's going to be a big test for them as well. So, like you say, we're just going to see how well they're playing together. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the officials. It's Wayne Barnes holding the whistle there, and there's his assistants and TMO. The weather for Nantes is supposed to be mainly cloudy and very warm, possible thunder rain, 70% chance of rain. So the conditions might be a factor on Saturday evening in Nantes. Which brings us on to just a quick look at of all the other matches. Now we're watching France, Uruguay now. France seem to be pulling away there, but there's a lot of other rugby this weekend. Is there one match in particular looking forward to?
Australia, Fiji,
Yeah.
hands down. Aside from watching Ireland, that is the pick of the games this weekend. Fiji are going to be, they are that wounded dog ready to fight back. And they're going to be very, very aggressive. They are going to do a lot of running. And I don't know how well Eddie Jones can prepare for the random things they could be throwing at them. So definitely Australia Fiji is my pick of another game to watch for this weekend.
Absolutely. And
That's
that just leaves
Sunday 5:30.
Yep, indeed. And that just leaves us with your prediction for Ireland Tonga.
Ireland with a bonus point, win by 20. Conservative enough, but I think we'll get to a stage where I'm not ruling out Tongan tries by any means, but we'll get ahead. There'll be a couple of lazy moments, I expect, which isn't the worst thing in the world because then you've got something to shout at the lads for doing wrong. But yeah, Ireland by actually I'd say 20-25 would be my. I haven't looked what the bookies have us by, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I mean 5 points, 5 match points, and no injuries. I think for both of the opening games. Yeah. I think anything else is really a bonus. Okay, listen, we're gonna leave it there, man. Thanks a million to Conor as ever, and also to you all for tuning in to our latest preview show. Enjoy the match wherever you are, and be sure to follow us on all the usual social media channels. We will, of course, have a wrap pod recording for you on Sunday evening. Conor's actually going to be back for that one as well, so we'll see how well his prediction did, and hopefully you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. So until then, stay safe, everyone. Slán.